Oh, the video. Oh, they gonna be mad. Hey, what's going on, y'all? Bam, yeah, Kojo Locks in the house. I'm here, my bad. I was real busy, but I'm here. I didn't forget about y'all. I didn't forget about y'all. You saw the thumbnail, you know what it is. We're gonna be talking today about, well, how do dreadlocks become dreadlocks, right? Why do dreadlocks become dreadlocks? And quite simply, you know, what are some things we can do to assure our dreadlocks become dreadlocks? So we'll touch on that in a second. Before I go into that though, for those that don't know, my name is Joseph Morrison, aka Kojo Locks. Thanks for coming out. This is a lock channel where I do discuss lock content. So if that's something you're interested in, you're here, I would hope you are. Please hit the subscribe button, smash the like button, and you know, hit that notification bell just so you're notified on all the posts when I post them. So as I said, we're gonna be talking about locks as usual, and in today's video, we're specifically gonna talk about like, how do locks lock up? Like, what makes the thing do the twist and then the, what? Right, you know what I'm saying? So pretty much before we go into that, we really just have to talk about, you know, what's the purpose of hair in general? And when you think about, you know, we are mammals, right? So if you think about the animal kingdom, hair really is to provide warmth. That's the purpose of hair for ourselves, whether it be on our head, on our skin, on our arms, for animals like lions and bears and all that kind of stuff that live in the wild. You know, your hair is there to provide a sense of warmth for you, right? You know, when you think about the hair on our heads, it's the same thing. It's really just there to pretty much provide warmth for your head. It's almost like a hat for your head, pretty much. So that being said, and obviously living in the societies that we live in, most of us are probably in the Western world. You know, we're used to grooming our hair, doing things to our hair, keeping it well kept, if you will, right? We wash our hair, we comb our hair, we style our hair. We're constantly essentially touching our hair and doing things with our hair. And that's gonna cause it to look a certain way, whether it's a hairstyle you like, or whether it's just kind of keeping it well groomed. And I do that because, you know, it's a little bit of a disrespect when you say that, you know, lockers don't groom their hair, you know what I mean? Like, for manicured lockers like me, it's a little bit of a disrespect, but we're gonna move past that real quick. But you get my point. We're always doing stuff to our hair. So we don't really have the understanding as to why our hair does lock up. You can say the fundamental reasons as to why your hair begins to merge, marry, and lock up is a few things. So one, when you leave your hair alone, which as Western worlders we're not used to doing, your hair will naturally just start to kind of tangle up, coil up together, and come together. Now, almost think about it as like the headphones in your pocket. You know what I mean? Like you put your headphones in, you listen to your music, you're done, you put it in your pocket, and you pull it out sometimes, and it's like, why is it tangled? Like, how does it keep getting tangled? And usually the reason for that is, you know, you might listen to your headphones, you put them in your pocket, you take it out, it might have like one little knot in it because the way you put it in, put it back in your ears, put it back in your pocket, and that just keeps on happening, right? So essentially, this is the same but different. The same in the sense that over time, it's just gonna kind of start to coil together very similarly to headphones. But the reason when it comes to hair is because the same reason I mentioned in the beginning. The purpose of our hair is to keep us warm. So naturally, our hairs start to come together and get a little bit closer because that creates a little bit more of a shield, if you will, of warmth for the head. So the more we don't touch our hair as that's happening, that's gonna allow our hair to continue to come together and to continue to coil up, right? So essentially, by not touching our hair, not manipulating it, and that's why for all of us starter lockers out there, it's so important to try and do as little as possible to your hair, is to help that locking process, because you wanna leave it alone so it begins to kind of come together and coil up and tangle up. Now that being said, another thing that also does help the marrying, if you will, or the coiling up of our locks is friction and impact. So I know some of you are like, wait, you just said don't touch your hair, but now you're saying a lot of friction helps it. Well, what I mean by that is, in this sense, controlled friction also does help. And what I mean is not running your hands through your hair like this, because now what you're doing is, for starter lockers, you're uncoiling some of the work that's being done, or you're disrupting the locking process. But if you're doing something like wearing your do-rag at night, where your hair is pretty well protected, right? It's kind of being kept in the same spot, but obviously as you sleep, your head kind of moves around on the pillow. It does cause the locks to kind of move, rub, and create friction, and that's gonna help to cause the hairs to start coiling through each other. Then as you go through your day, you leave the hair alone, it's gonna continue doing that. Then you go to bed at night with your do-rag on, so it continues that process, right? So controlled friction also does help the locking process as well. And the next thing would be washing your hair. That's one thing that a lot of people feel is not good for the starter locking process. And they're not right, they're not wrong, but ultimately the way that I look at it is, number one, you don't want to start your locking process with a dirty scalp. So ultimately, if your scalp is dirty, you do have to go in and wash your hair. And the benefit of that though, towards the locking process, is when you wash your hair, right, it's gonna cause the hair to expand, right? It hydrates, it kind of gets a little bit bloated, if you will. So it kind of expands the hair, makes it a little bit more poofy, as I'm sure a lot of you have noticed when you have washed your hair or your locks. And it's gonna cause it to seemingly unlock or uncoil, or, you know, if your hair is starting to lock up, it's gonna look like it comes apart. But that actually benefits you, because now what it does is it kind of causes the hair to expand. So even though they're still coiled together lightly, it's gonna expand a little bit, but then when that hair dries, it's gonna coil together a little bit more. So washing your hair actually does help the locking process. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean wash your hair every day, because now you're just doing too much disruption to the process. You want to essentially be washing your hair so that your scalp is clean. The benefit of that is it will help the locking process in that regard. You don't want to overdo it, as I said, right? So essentially, when thinking about, or ultimately comes to the conclusion of why our hair locks up or how that works, that's pretty much it. You know, it's the sense that your hair says, okay, my job is to keep you warm, therefore the closer I can be to the strand next to me, right, the better off, or the more I'm going to be doing my job as a hair on your head. Now, the more we don't touch our hair, the more that marrying and that locking process begins to continue and continues to happen. Now, I know some of you are also wondering, okay, well, what happens if so why is it that when I leave my hair alone completely, it just comes into kind of more a free-form locking style, as opposed to just one big gigantic lock? Well, that just goes towards little different nuances that we all go through individually. So whether it be the way you're sleeping, or whether it be the way you're carrying yourself, whether it be where you're resting your head in different times of the day, or whatever the case may be, will lead towards your hair leaning towards one side and locking up here or locking up there. But essentially, you will notice that people that do free form lock their hair, their locks are a lot thicker, right? You're not gonna see someone that free forms typically that has really thin locks, right? That's usually someone who's semi-free forming. So they're free forming in the sense that they're letting their hair just do whatever it's gonna do. But as that's happening, they might start to separate some of those locks to kind of create a little bit more of a thinner lock look than having those thick, gigantic, kind of thick free forms that most free form lockers will have if they literally do nothing to their hair. So that's pretty much how the locking process really works. And then there's lockers like myself who kind of has manicured locks. So although I'm doing the same thing of, you know, trying to leave my locks alone so that it begins the locking process, that's why we go into start and we have somebody give ourselves individual parted sections. And once our hair is parted out, then we leave it alone so it locks up in those sections, right? So ultimately, if we just leave our locks alone completely, it's gonna freeform and it's gonna lock up however it wants to. So it really depends on you and how you wanna start your locking process, or what kind of locks you wanna have. But I just thought it was pretty informative and pretty important to kind of just understand what your hair is going through. And it'll give us a better sense of things that we can do and we need to do to help the locking process. You know, sometimes I think it's important to understand the fundamentals of something to attach it to your why, right? Like if someone just says, oh, you know, don't touch your hair, so it helps the locking process. If you don't really understand what your hair is doing and how that helps the locking process, it's kind of hard for you to just be like, okay, I just won't touch my hair because this guy said so. Sometimes it helps to kind of connect the dots yourself and be like, oh, now I have a more deep-rooted understanding of what my hair is going through. And it just makes you a little bit more committed to understanding why you shouldn't touch your hair and how that does help your locking process, right? So just thought I'd kind of jump in, give you a little bit of information on that. For anybody out there who's listening and maybe has something to add to the conversation as to why hair locks up and how hair locks up, if you want to get a little bit more sciencey with it, throw it in the comment section, you know the deal. Other than that, just wanted to touch base with you on that. And you know, I want to keep these videos rocking and rolling. So I guess I'll see y'all next week, right? I guess I'll be back next week. Please feel free to subscribe, like, and share this video if you thought it was informative. Again, if you have anything to add, throw it in the comments. And as for that, I'm gonna sign out on that note, all right? Kojo Locs. Sign out, y'all. Peace and love.